What's up guys, RBG here, hitting you guys up with some news regarding the new Transformers Bumblebee solo film. And the latest news comes courtesy of TFW 2005. And I gotta admit that this is some pretty satisfying news because apparently IDW is coming out with a prequel comic / novelization to the Bumblebee movie. This is something that came way out of left field because we haven't really gotten any spin-off comics regarding the live-action movies since Dark of the Moon. I mean, of course you could include the Titan magazines, but those weren't necessarily well-written entries and they were only exclusive to the UK. But anyways, one of the main reasons IDW halted their production on the prequel comics was because of the Transformers director, Michael Bay himself. Supposedly, around the time Dark of the Moon was set to be released in theaters, the comics that were released in conjunction with it ended up spoiling a good chunk of the movie. Now, I have to admit that it is a bummer considering that the comics do the movies so much justice, because they essentially provided us with an idea of how things were on Cybertron before the main storyline became more Earth-based and revolved around the humans. But I guess I can't really be too upset with Michael Bay's decision to end it because he knows that the movies are at the forefront of the franchise. And there's tons of stuff that I haven't even covered on this channel regarding some of the Autobots and Decepticons from those comics. Now I'm guessing that since Bay isn't tied to the current film, Hasbro has given IDW the go-ahead to continue this tradition. Like, I know that the original idea was to come up with a fresh new canon that steps over the established boundaries that were previously set up, because it's obvious that this comic is going to contradict a lot of story elements that were set up in the previous run. Like, I don't think the writer's room took into consideration that the IDW prequel comics had already shed light of what Bumblebee was up to before the events of the movies. I'm talking every tiny detail from him getting his vocal processor destroyed to how he met up with Sam Witwicky. So of course, this new entry is bound to rewrite some of the story elements we've come to accept. But anyways, I think we have a lot to look forward to because the comics will be made by the same team who worked on the Robots in Disguise series. And it is set to be released on June the 20th. The synopsis reads as so. Some call him Gold Defender, but the name's B in Bumblebee. On loan to M16 and teamed with a human partner, B's trapped in the middle of a Cold War plot to disrupt British secret intelligence. But when things go wrong, it's up to B to discover if there's a traitor in their midst. In the spy world, allegiance can change just as easily as a transformer. So as you can see, the comics will be following B's backstory from TF5 where he's working with the British Army in the mid-20th century. And when it says that he's quote-unquote being on loan, it's a common way of describing when someone working for one organization temporarily goes to work with another one. So B basically did dirt jobs for various military forces until he ultimately became a wanted fugitive. What I'm interested in seeing is how they show B or ZB7 actually allying himself with the humans. I'm pretty sure we're most likely going to see Sir Edmund Burton and the Witwicky's Order. I think that part of the movie needs to be harped on the most because it was such a huge retcon that it didn't have time to fully flesh itself out. We know that the Cybertronians have forged a pact with the Arthurian Knights, but how exactly did this alliance trickle over to the Witwickens? But anyways, I'm getting off topic. If anything, I'm interested in seeing how they'll handle Hot Rod since he's now directly tied into B's origin. He fought alongside B and is considered his brother in arms, so this is the perfect time to give him a little backstory since he was never introduced in any of the earlier movie prequel comics. But besides the news of the Bumblebee film getting a prequel comic, it's also been announced that IDW is pretty much reviving the prequel comics in general. That means that we can at least get some unanswered questions regarding our second wave of Autobots like Drift, Hound, and Crosshairs, because they still don't have a proper backstory explaining their past and how they ended up on Earth. I mean, the Titan magazines kinda goes into these minute details, but as I mentioned before, they're exclusive to the UK. And as of today, I have yet to find any of the issues floating around the internet in their entirety, so they either weren't that good or they were just limited in prints. One thing that the comics can take advantage of in regards to these characters is elaborating on the concepts the writer's room didn't get the chance to elaborate on. The main thing being the old photos of Drift and Hound being around before the original wave of Autobots traveled to Earth. Those photos instantly caused a shitstorm during promotions of The Last Night, which is understandable. I personally felt like it was a good idea, but it was poorly executed. Like, why in the hell would Ironhide or Starscream be in these old photos unless they were totally different characters? And why are there two drifts in this picture of samurais? I've had my own speculations about this issue, but I hope that IDW seizes the opportunity to expand upon them. Like, wouldn't it be cool if the other samurai transformer just so happens to be Drift's late friend Wing from the G1 comics? That would be nothing short of awesome. Speaking of the G1 comics, I have some unfortunate news. For the past few months, there's been word going around that IDW's current run of the TF comics is coming to an end. After 14 years of picking up where Dreamwave left off, the G1 era will finally see its inevitable conclusion. This rumor was confirmed by TF More Than Meets the Eye and Lost Light writer James Robert via Twitter. In his tweet he says, and I quote, "The current IDW G1 continuity will end spectacularly with the Unicron issue number 6, Optimus Prime issue number 25, and Lost Light issue number 25, all in September. All three are bi-weekly over summer. We've had time to plan for the end, so it's a proper, unrushed wrap. Beyond September, new IDW comics, new continuity." He goes on to say that Lost Light will end in the way he always intended More Than Meets the Eye to. This epic conclusion will have 10 issues that are sure to please the fans. Now, for those who don't know, More Than Meets the Eye was James Roberts' original run of the comics, which began in 2012. The series would later be relaunched in 2016 under the title Lost Light. So yeah, they're pretty much the same in concept, except one is more compiled than the other. Speaking from my own experience, the IDW G1 comics has been nothing short of amazing. I recently did a short-lived run on my channel, but it got a lukewarm reception from fans who mostly tune in to watch my Michael Bay related videos. If you want me to continue this segment, I'm willing to start a Patreon campaign dedicated to it. But anyways, none of this would be possible without the brilliant mind of the great Simon Furman. The man single-handedly created a Transformers Bible that pretty much served as a building block for the main universe we see today. As a matter of fact, the Michael Bay films borrowed from this guy heavily when they were hell-bent on creating the first film. So yeah, the guy is kind of a big deal, especially considering that he's had his hand in both the UK and Western comics. From that beginning, we got 14 years of stories, some good and some bad and some downright amazing. From the Asian series to All Hail Megatron to the Coaster run all the way until 2012 when IDW did something never explored before in the Transformers universe. They ended the war between the Autobots and Decepticons. From that, we also have our most current versions, the Optimus Prime and Lost Light. Now, what they plan to do after these comics end their run is still up in the air. And this isn't necessarily bad news because we still have an entire multiverse of Transformers comics to read out there. And as I mentioned earlier, the movie prequel comics have been revived from the dead, so there's still a good amount of variety to choose from. But anyways, I think I've rambled on enough. Hit me up in the comments and let me know what you think about this news. Once again, this is your boy RBG hitting you guys up with another video. I will catch you guys later. Peace out.